more I can say apart. Well, first of all, there's nothing more I can say apart from Paulie got like exactly what he asked for. But how do you feel about this huge thing about Paulie sparring Conor? Like, is he real?
So, I think, you know, obviously, as far as actual footage, we only have a few seconds. We have, you know, the clip of the knockdown and that Paulie calls a push down, and we have the footage with the cross, and then Conor kind of knocking him into the ropes. And, you know, to be fair, that's only a small percentage of the entirety of the fight. But even before that footage came out, I had a hard time buying into what Paulie Malignaggi was saying. And the reason being is he was just going so hard in the paint to paint McGregor and the camp in a negative light that it almost seemed like a case of thou protest too much. You know what I'm saying? Like, he came across, before the footage even came out, he came across as being butthurt, or as being, you know, his ego was tarnished, and now he was trying to kind of puff out his chest and compensate. That was the vibe that I got from his demeanor. Then the footage comes out, and the footage kind of conflicts with what it was that he was alleging occurred. And that leads me to think that out of the rest of the footage, it probably leans further towards what Conor said happened than what Paulie happened, just based on what we have in those little clips, because those clips lean further towards what Conor said happened than what Paulie said happened. What was your take on that?
Before I even seen the footage, I was absolutely confident, absolutely 100% confident in my gut, in the feeling I had in my gut when I seen that image capturing in the position Paulie was, that he was parallel with the ropes. Usually when a push down occurs, it would be with excessive force, because obviously the fighter that is being pushed down obviously does not want to be pushed down, because when you're in a sparring, Jay, everything matters. These wee tiny pushes, these wee nudges, these wee give and goes, as they're called, wee give and goes, all these things matter. So for Paulie to actually say that it was a push down was actually more confirmation that it was a knockdown, because these wee things matter, especially amongst professionals, because I'm just an amateur boxer with national experience within Irish competitors, but people like Paulie and stuff has experienced the grind. If you really look at Paulie's history, he has went through a meat mincer, because if you look at the population of Ireland, if you look at it as Khabib Nurmagomedov said, Russia 150 million, Ireland only 4 million. When you look at the population rate of Ireland compared to America, of course there's going to be a lot more talent walking through the doors of Paulie Malignaggi's gym than SBG Ireland.
Right.
This is where the deception falls into Conor McGregor's plan. This is the greatest deception, because Conor has came from a country that is very limited, very isolated in its advancements due to combat, i.e. for example, when Conor first came onto the scene, a lot of people were criticising Conor's ability to fight the higher contenders within the UFC, obviously due to Ireland not having significant experience in combat. But this is what Paulie and Floyd and the entire world are deeply mistaken, Jay. They are deeply mistaken. Conor is not just a fighter. Conor is an Irishman. Irish men and Irish women have a different view on life, and this fight, I please all my viewers out there and everybody else who's listening, this fight is not about money. This fight is about legacy, and there is something. Conor actually, I think he absolutely thrives in people that doubt him, the people that doubt Conor, and this is why I see it would be the same with you, Jay. If you went into a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu class and everybody doubted you in that class, there would be an extra drive within your heart. There would be an extra bounce inside your step. Right. So what I'm thinking here is that Paulie in his mindset has been thinking, okay, this Irishman is limited to certain skills, so I'm just going to go in and spar him. And I'm not too sure, Jay. I've got a couple of theories of, like, was Paulie paid by Floyd Mayweather to enter Conor's gym? Or was Paulie actually invited in by Conor the way the media say? Or was Conor, Floyd and Paulie actually in communication, actually saying, now this is a wee bit of a conspiracy, but most Conor said, give me whoever you think, and maybe Floyd said, Paulie, go ahead or something, but that's my last option, but I really do believe that Paulie was aware, by the way. I'm not too sure about you, brother, but I believe that Paulie was absolutely aware that it was a 12-round fight.
So there's a lot there. You said a lot. One being the inspiration, I guess, or the motivation that Conor gets from people doubting him. And you'll notice there are certain people who inherently do well or do bad under pressure, right? You see this in other sports as well, where some people have extra pressure put on them and it causes them to rise to the occasion, and other people have pressure put on them and they crumble under it. A good example of that, me and my co-host tend to talk about a lot, is Donald Cerrone. Donald Cerrone always looks amazing, and then somehow when the really, really big fights come up, he just can't get past that next level. He underperforms. On the flip side, you have a guy like Conor McGregor, who's I don't know if you guys have the same slang there, but here you might say he's clutch, right? You put pressure on him and he digs down harder and he comes up stronger. And I think the extra pressure and the extra motivation of people doubting him will definitely bring something out of him that we haven't seen before in this Mayweather-McGregor fight. As far as Malignaggi and conspiracies and all of that, I did have to wonder, and I still do to a certain extent, maybe less now that I've seen the footage and the way some of these interviews are going, but I was curious if McGregor didn't kind of come into an agreement with Malignaggi that they would, do this big public fiasco of Malignaggi falling out with the gym, and it was a push down, it was a knockdown, and they had me in a crack house, and I was in a World War II, like this whole craziness to help promote the fight. Because we have to. I think if we're going to be honest, the beef between Paulie Malignaggi and McGregor has done as much to promote the fight as the actual fight between Mayweather and McGregor. Mayweather and McGregor.
Mhm. Yeah, that's also true. But I could see that as a sign of further sign of defeat from Paulie, because if 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 Paulie can somehow convince the entire population that that he was not beat in 12 rounds, if he can somehow keep the people believing that, then the fight might occur. But if this 12 rounds is released, then people will observe what the fight would be like in real life, because that was just a simulation.
Right.
But with my observation from sparring myself and having many like violent altercations in sparring, Paulie looked very soft, and not just soft, but nearly he nearly looked like a child in there. He nearly looked like a young child.
Okay.
In those quick images, and the only reason why I'll say that is I don't know if you notice it, but at the very last second, I don't know who makes the sound. I think it's Paulie. He makes a strange noise, and it's nearly like he was as a child again. It was strange. It's a strange noise. But see that straight left that strikes, that hits Paulie, like from that image that we seen from Dana White that he released, was we see the footage starts. There is a clinch. There's a separation in the clinch, and then Conor fires that straight left. There's a sin in boxing, which is actually one of the shots that knocked out Foreman, and it's actually a sin in boxing, and it's striking with your power shot first.
Okay.
And Conor actually utilised that against. But this is how. There's a very, very interesting video on YouTube called Muhammad Ali knocks out Foreman. It's just a strange video. I'll actually send it to you on chat sometime. But it's Muhammad Ali striking coach Angelo Dundee, and he talks about no one ever throws the right hand first because it's too easy to counter. So Muhammad Ali actually knocked out Foreman with this actual shot. But the other thing that people need to consider too, these viewers, all our viewers, that Paulie Malignaggi and Conor were sparring in 16-ounce gloves, people. 16-ounce gloves. And from my looking at, if that was the 12th round, if they were 10-ounce gloves, that would have occurred maybe round 5, round 6, maybe.
Right.
You know, half the actual time, because and this is another thing as well. This is another thing why I think Conor McGregor has a huge advantage in this fight. Well, first of all, what's your actual thoughts on the reason why Conor has an advantage in this fight, just from a martial artist yourself?
Okay, so I think they both have their advantages. Mayweather has his advantages, Conor has his advantages, and it's going to be about who can play their advantage best to overcome the other person's. I think what McGregor has, obviously there's a youth and athleticism because he's a younger guy. He's a naturally sturdier guy. That's an advantage for sure. But I think more than all of that is similar to what you're talking about with leading with the power punch. The reason why that caught people, why it caught Malignaggi and why it caught Foreman, is because it's not expected. It's what you don't see coming. And they always say, especially in boxing, it's the punch that you don't see that knocks you out. When we go back and we look at like the Gracies, for example, when the UFC started, part of the reason why the Gracies dominated so thoroughly was because nobody, I shouldn't say nobody, most people in the martial arts world had not been exposed or experienced submission grappling before. This was something that they were unaware of. When you look at Lyoto Machida, when he came in, part of the reason why he dominated so powerfully is because people had not, in the UFC, had not really experienced a successful karate practitioner like Machida in the UFC. And so when you're being exposed to something for the first time, you don't know the patterns, you don't know the setups, you don't know exactly what you're looking for, what you're looking at, and you can't just move into a rhythm and read things like you normally would because this is new to you. And I think if we're going to say that McGregor has any advantage over Mayweather, that is going to be his biggest advantage. His biggest advantage is going to be doing things in a way that Mayweather is not accustomed to or isn't expecting, and catching him off guard. One of the things that I've spoken about with, just people who I've talked to personally about this fight is Mayweather says that one of his hardest fights, if not his hardest fight, was Augustus Emmanuel. And if you look up Augustus Emmanuel, there's some highlights of him. He had a very awkward style. He would literally fall into like a dancing rhythm and do these kind of weird shoulder bouncing like dance moves mid-fight. And this was one of the hardest fights, if not the hardest fight for Mayweather. And I believe the reason was because he had not seen this before. And so I think if we're going to see McGregor win this, we're going to see it by him catching Floyd early on with something that Floyd wasn't expecting and hasn't seen before.
Yeah, well said. I was very nicely said.
Thank you.
That's exactly what's running through my mind also. That very unorthodox movements and this very peculiar and uncanny movements. These just out of the box, literally, literally out of boxing. This is also a huge advantage for Conor, that Conor has not been corrupted by the formula nor the patterns of boxing. Conor hasn't been moulded and cast in a boxing club. In any traditional club, no one's sat Conor down and drilled his footwork, drilled his shoulder position, worked on his shot selection, worked on his head movement, because he's in a more free flow state of combat. So when I go up to Fight Academy Ireland, which has multiple fighters in Cage Warriors, if anybody doesn't know, Conor McGregor was discovered in Cage Warriors. So Fight Academy Ireland has a great lust for striking, any type of striking at all, because it's a jiu-jitsu based school. So when I go up there and I start to work on my, let's say, sprawls, my shrimps, my escapes, it actually improves my striking in a boxing club. And the way I like to think of it is, it's the same with, I don't know if anybody else has said this in America, or anybody of your friends or anything, but it's a bit like, you know, when a driver is very experienced, a very well-trained driver.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you get a learner, you get somebody who has just entered onto the road. The learner will actually make less mistakes than the experienced driver. Studies have shown that long-term drivers are so comfortable in their own driving techniques that they make many mistakes, like crossing their arms while they're turning the steering wheel. You're always meant to have quarter to three,
right?
When you're, or 245 on the steering wheel. These wee small things. So when a learner driver has done his theory, I don't know if you have a theory test in America, but it's a test where you study all the theoretical parts of driving. So you study like road maps, and you study a lot of fresh stuff.
Okay.
But the drivers that's experienced, he will not be as well versed on those techniques. So what I'm thinking is that Floyd is so comfortable and so set in his patterns that maybe when he makes a mistake, I'm not saying that Connor's going to capitalise on a mistake. I'm just saying that with Connor's bizarre and sporadic movements, that Connor will just catch him regardless. But I do think Connor's biggest advantage in this fight is that he is not a boxer. He has not been corrupted. He has not been manipulated by boxing. So I really do think also, Jay, that Connor is not going to come out as aggressive as what people think, because everybody assumes that Connor needs to be aggressive in order to start to win rounds. But I can see Connor being very rangy, very at range, and maybe at such range that Floyd will just not engage whatsoever. Floyd will not engage at that type of distance, unlike Connor's going to be so comfortable at that range that I think we're going to see maybe one round or 2 rounds of Connor playing the long range sniper, not actually throwing much shots, but sitting very long back. And but this is all speculation. But what I've seen, what did you think of Connor in the open workouts?
I thought the open workouts were interesting. Before I touch on that, I just want to touch on the point that you just brought up, because I think you have a very good point there in the idea of Connor not coming in super aggressive, at least initially. Floyd is a defensive fighter. He kind of sits back, lets the other guy kind of come at him. He slips, moves, maneuvers around, and then counters on their fuck-ups. One of the things that you see with counter strikers and defensive fighters is that when you pull back and you don't initiate, oftentimes they are not very comfortable or nearly as effective being the aggressor. You see this with Anderson Silva, for example. Anderson Silva is an evasive, defensive counter striker. And the fights where he's done the worst have been the fights where the opponent doesn't pursue him. The opponent sits back and makes Anderson try to come to them. And I think if McGregor...
Michael Bisping's example.
Which one?
Michael Bisping in London.
Yeah.
You know, that controversial, because Bisping did not play that game of cat and mouse. He just Yes, so you're absolutely correct.
Yeah, I think if McGregor can pull Mayweather, and this is, of course, this is just speculation. This all hinges on whether or not Mayweather goes for it. Mayweather, of course, this is Mayweather's game, and you know, the man has been doing this since he was like 4 years old. So the question is whether or not, one, McGregor employs this tactic, and two, whether he can get Mayweather to fall for it. But I do see that at least being an area of potential for McGregor to try to pull Mayweather into being the more aggressive person, and pulling Mayweather into coming after him. That said, the open workout was interesting. I think McGregor is getting a lot of flack from the boxing community for some of his warm-up drills, or the way he does things, the way he moves, and that's to be expected. Whenever somebody does something that is out of the norm, and when someone does something which is contrary to what they have set in place as being the established routine. But that said, I think it was very interesting. I think McGregor looked very lively. He looked pretty sharp. I was very interested by some of his footwork that he used. He used kind of a lot of karate switch stances and things like that, which I think are interesting. I'm curious, though, as to whether or not what he displayed during the workout is what he actually intends to use during the fight. Considering that I think a lot of what McGregor has in his favor is the element of surprise, I wonder if what he showed in the workout isn't kind of a red herring, a misdirection. What do you think?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I like your train of thinking. That's very smart, because then Conor has not only fooled all the boxing world, he has fooled because it's a very interesting point what you're saying. He looked very light, very sharp. He looked very happy. That's actually a really good point that you made. That he looked very happy. I think that if Conor comes into this fight and does absolutely nothing what he displayed in that ring, I think a lot of boxing people are going to be very worried, very, very worried. So I actually haven't thought about that, because from my experience, Jay, from sparring, see people that switch stances on me, it is very difficult to find your exits, because as you well know, if somebody in a fight is switching stances, then your power shot switches stances then.
Right.
So when somebody switches stances, and if that person switches stances is very good at doing this ability, you have to be super, super careful. And I haven't seen Conor switch stances much in his career, but I did see him punch the bag. I didn't see him switch much, but he did switch stances a lot while punching the bag. And I really do think that the output that Conor was doing on the bag was absolutely nothing what he has realistically, because I am no Conor McGregor. I am absolutely no Conor, but I have me doing a heavy bag. There's a video of me doing a heavy bag about 4 weeks ago, and I am punching that bag as hard as I can, and that is like it's loud. It's really, really loud, and there was multiple mics, multiple microphones surrounding Conor, and there was some nice power shots, but Conor wasn't even 50% in my opinion he was definitely high up in his activity. He was very active, but his power was very, 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 very low. And I actually wrote that in my notes, that I witnessed a volume puncher, which is really good, because Michael Bisping, if there's anybody in the entire UFC can learn from a fighter, it's Michael Bisping. His output is just insane. Of course, he's got good English kick, good of the kickboxing got that from England, of good boxers in England.
Mm-hmm.
But output can win you fights, but in the boxing community, boxing judges they're so corrupt. They're so corrupt, the boxing judges. So and see, the other thing as well, Jay, I don't know if this has came across your mind, but so what I observed was, during that session when Conor was doing the heavy bag, I have notes here just that. So it's 3 minutes. It's 3 minute rounds in this boxing fight. So, as a martial artist, being accustomed and almost nearly designed, I'm actually going to say that you're almost nearly designed for a 5 minute combative fight. So what I witnessed, Jay, was that when Conor McGregor's corner, when they yelled, or when they instructed Conor that he was halfway, so see when his corner yelled at Conor in this fight with Floyd, "We are halfway." That is 1 minute and 30 seconds. 1 minute and 30 seconds. That is halfway. In an MMA fight, you're just warmed up.
Right.
So what I'm thinking is that, will Floyd in round 2, when Conor applies a bit more pressure, because if you look at it at the beginning of round 2 in an MMA fight, they're actually still in round 1. Mm-hmm. So Conor has not only entered round 2 absolutely fresh, and with a minute break, and with rehydration, and with corner instruction. He is going to enter that second round. I am telling you, people, Conor is going to enter that so aggressively, maybe round 2 or round 3, because also when you look at it, at the beginning of round 3, when you have 6 minutes, they have just passed round 1 in an MMA fight, and I can see these rounds being very, very taxing and very on Floyd's body, because of the constant forward pressure. And of course, 10-ounce gloves versus 4-ounce gloves is absolutely insane. The difference is absolutely insane. I'm not saying the actual the glove can knock any man out, but there is 6 ounces on each hand, so that's 12 ounces in weight is taken off the human body from the fists.
Right.
So that has to have some sort of major implication on Floyd's damage and on his ability to actually do damage to Conor. So I can see Conor walking through Floyd's shots and nearly doing, the same thing that he done to Eddie Alvarez. Mm-hmm. You know, when Eddie Alvarez tried to apply some sort of striking pressure, and Conor slipped, and he came forward with so much aggression that, see the shot, it hit Eddie Alvarez on the side of the head, and the power, Eddie Alvarez, of course, that's 4-ounce gloves, but I can't see Floyd doing any damage whatsoever.
Well, so, okay. I think you made a good observation with noticing that McGregor was going very light. He was underperforming, if you will, deliberately on his power and speed. And I suspect that, that may be to try to throw off the Mayweather side, or at the very least throw off fans, or to kind of mislead what he's capable of. I think what we saw from McGregor, as far as his speed on the bag, as far as his power on the bag during the open workout, is we saw a very subdued version of what he's actually capable of doing. And it's a very interesting point that you bring up about the length of the rounds, because I think there's definitely some validity to that. I think it's also worth considering that the boxing pace, because there's no threat from the takedown, because there's no threat from kicks, and because you can stand in the pocket a little bit more, I feel like the boxing pace is a little bit faster. So I think it's going to be very curious to see, or very interesting to see, what weighs more. The fact that the rounds are shorter, or the fact that the pace during those shorter rounds is faster. Historically, McGregor has, not been renowned for his cardio, for his endurance. He's not a Nick Diaz. He's not a Bisping. We've seen him get better at that since he had that Nate Diaz fight, and I'm quite sure that he has been working on that leading into this fight. And he's, from everything that I can hear him saying and Dana saying and everybody around him, is that he's in the best condition he's ever been in. But I'm very curious to see how the shorter rounds and the difference in pace plays out in regards to his conditioning. What's your take on that? Because I have seen a few people criticize, it looks like maybe towards the end of his open workout he was getting a little winded, or he was seeming a little somewhat fatigued at the end of that workout. What's your take on how his conditioning is going to play into things?
Yeah, that's very well said. I can tell absolutely that you're totally aware of what it takes in order to enter any field of combat, because in the boxing ring the pace is absolutely at a different value, obviously, because, as you well highlighted, that there is no takedowns, there is no low kicks, high kicks, there's none of these weapons that apply. So what I've actually said before in a previous is that MMA is like spinning plates in a circus.
Okay.
And you get these guys that spin plates, and they spin multiple plates, on straws.
Uh-huh.
And that is mixed martial arts. Mixed martial arts is spinning plates. So when you spin a plate, you have to spin the first plate, the second plate, and by the time you get to the 10th plate, your last plate, you have to run all the way back to plate number 1 and start spinning plate number 1 and continue all the way through again. So that is mixed martial arts. That is spinning plates. So see, for me, a boxing match or a boxing fight is spinning maybe 2 or 3 plates. So Conor has been more or less in a job where he is spinning multiple plates, and all of a sudden he has been told that you can spin 3 plates now. So this is why I think in the boxing, Conor is not going to be as troubled as other MMA fighters, because Conor camouflaged and, I believe, smuggled boxing into mixed martial arts. In my opinion, I said that in about 7 or 8 months ago in an old podcast, that Conor has camouflaged boxing amongst MMA, the head movement, the slipping, the footwork, obviously leading with your feet before your hands. That is maybe one of the most important movement techniques of a boxer. Moving your feet into position before your hands, and the best person in, I swear, is Nate Diaz at moving into position with his feet before his hands. And this is why I believe he has an ability to take shots, because his feet are grounded.
Okay.
At all times when a shot occurs on Nate, his feet are planted. So Conor has this ability also. So this is why I believe that Conor had the ability to go through the same amount of punishment as he did in the second Nate fight. Obviously, due to his cardiovascular systems were much, much better through hiring the Irish Olympian cyclist.
Mm-hmm.
That Irish Olympian cyclist who is with Conor McGregor, he is nothing but a time machine. He is nothing but about time and time and time. He sorts Conor's output out, and for Conor's camp, for SBG to bring this output from 5 minutes down to 3 minutes, and not only bring it down to 3 minutes, you're not applying all these other weapons, but as you well said about a boxing fight, there being a lot more, you could call it pressure, lack of a better word, pressure. There's a bit more pressure because obviously the fight can only occur when the fighters are standing. So in an MMA fight, if pressure's occurring, you can go to the clinch back against the cage and slow the fight down. This is why I think Conor has an advantage, because Floyd is not a fighter who is going to somewhat apply major aggression to somewhat trouble Conor, because that's not Floyd's style. So Floyd is never going to apply enough pressure in my eyes, and because if he decides to apply major pressure, he is going to get Aldo'd. He is going to be Jose Aldo'd. So I cannot see Floyd applying any type of dangerous pressure in order to make Conor think that he's in the wrong environment. But I just think the mind of a martial artist also is different from a mind of a boxer, and I'll explain why. A boxer is literally closed and encapsulated in their own philosophy, which is the boxing. Unlike mixed martial arts, is a multiple spectrum of different philosophies mixed in together. So this is why Conor is going to apply different pressure, a different type of pressure that Floyd is used to, and it's because he has not been corrupted by the philosophy of boxing. But what I have it Conor McGregor by KO or TKO. That is my prediction. That is my prediction. I have £50 on Conor to win, and I got him at 7-1, so that's £450.
Okay.
Which is quite a lot of money, but I don't know. Have you done any bets yourself?
I haven't. I'm not a betting man myself. If I bet, I'll usually bet, like I'll bet, for betting rights, or like, hey, you buy dinner or something like that. but I'm not one to bet money, like legit money, on fights. So I haven't made any serious bets, and I'm pulling for Conor. I want Conor to win. I see some areas that Conor might be able to take advantage of and shock the world, but I'm not confident enough in either way. This is one of those things, like, I have a very, 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 very difficult time saying Conor can't do something, because he has such a long history of people saying you can't do it, and then he turns around and shocks everybody. So I can't doubt Conor. That said, this is such a big leap from what we're used to seeing Conor do that I'm just too in the air with it. I don't feel confident enough in either direction to make a bet. You mentioned something that I think was very interesting, and you talked about, obviously being able to slow down the fight in MMA by going into the clinch and things like that. Do you think McGregor will be able to use the clinch work in his advantage at all during this fight? Of course, the referee's going to be breaking things up, and I'm pretty sure that Mayweather is going to be looking to... The ref will know that as an MMA individual, Conor is likely to use the clinch as much as he can to his advantage, and will probably be quick to break things up. But do you see McGregor using the clinch to his favor? And before you answer, I just want to point this out. During the Malignaggi knockdown, I think, there's some controversy. Malignaggi came out after the footage was released. And let's just point this out. Initially, if you remember, Malignaggi was saying, well, I was giving it to Floyd, and I was putting so much pressure on him and punching him up that he got frustrated and needed a break, so he shoved me and pushed me down. And then once the footage came out, he goes, well, no, if you look at the footage, I tried to slip under, and he hooked the back of my neck, and he dragged me down. That's not really what I saw. What I saw in that footage was, yes, McGregor did place a hand over the back of Malignaggi's head, and this is something that Floyd does. It's something that other boxers do, where you kind of prevent the person from coming up once they've weaved under. But what actually knocked him down was the uppercut. Malignaggi was in an off-balance position, somewhat due to his head being held down, but he was still on his 2 feet, and it was the actual uppercut that dropped him. But that being said, do you think McGregor will be able to use his understanding of leverage from a grappling perspective to off-balance or tire out or frustrate Mayweather in a way that other fighters have not been able to do?
Oh, absolutely. I have experience with Fight Academy Ireland, with rolling with blue belts. I rolled with blue belts just in learning clinch work and just applying underhooks, because this is very, very important for boxing, because when you're slipping when you're slipping underhooks in MMA, of course, with having MMA gloves, they are much better designed to fit into small gaps, unlike a boxing glove being very round. There's a lot of energy that is used in, obviously, the clinch. So what I found as a boxer is that when a jiu-jitsu guy clinched with me, it was a different appliance of strength, and it was the type of appliance where it actually drew me out of my game plan, because my game plan was not to obviously clinch and stuff. But when we're sparring and all of a sudden it goes quickly to the clinch, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy tends to clinch up in a position that is very discomforting. Unlike a boxer, all what a boxer clinches for is hope and pray that the referee splits you, especially with, if you've seen in the sparring footage, you see Conor getting the inside hooks, and Paulie's trying to come over the top, but Conor isn't allowing him because he has the inside position. Yeah. So a normal boxer maybe wouldn't think like that. And also when Conor slipped Paulie's shot, Conor actually had fantastic boxing. He also had his hand still applied to his face, nearly as if he was going to be kicked with a leg. You know, like if a leg kick was going to hit him. Mm-hmm. But from what I seen, from what I seen under the Marquess of Queensberry rules, that the Marquess of Queensberry rules are very strict when it comes to the clinching. That they don't want fighters to clinch without action. But this is the biggest thing, Jay. Conor is going to be doing lots of action. When a boxer clinches, a boxer tends to clinch and just hold. A jiu-jitsu guy, like, I'm just rolling with normal blue belts who actually aren't trying to really hurt me. They're not really trying to hurt me. They're trying to learn boxing. They're trying to learn how to jab, how to stick, and I'm learning how to clinch. But this is Conor McGregor we're talking about. Some of the most high level athletes. So when Conor does apply the clinch to Floyd, I think Floyd is going to instantly. Floyd is going to leave his game plan is going to instantly change due to Conor's his ability and willingness to work in the inside, because every boxer just wants to clinch and hold, unlike Conor's going to clinch and Conor's going to be dirty. Conor's going to be very, very dirty. He is going to do things that maybe boxers don't do, like rapidly punch the face when you're in the clinch, like rapidly punch the face. Boxers don't do that because boxers are more gentlemen, and for heaven's sake, the referee's wearing a tuxedo, like in a boxing fight. You know, at least big John McCarthy's in a t-shirt and just normal trousers. Unlike as a boxing referee, you need a full tuxedo, you need a dicky bow, and I think the boxing community is going to be shocked at Conor's willingness, his willingness, and his determination to work inside the clinch rather than other boxers who actually use the clinch as a way to rethink. You see, Jay, a lot of boxers clinch and use that moment of clinching to actually think about what they are meant to do, what they were told in the training room, what they were told at training camp. And like Conor McGregor, as you know, brother, when you clinch, now it's a different phase of combat. It's a different phase, unlike a boxer. A boxer clinches and then the boxer goes, oh, thank God, the referee's going to split me now.
Right.
Under the Marquess of Queensberry rules, if you are continuing to work, the referee will not split you up. So that's a fantastic question that you asked, Jay. That's a fantastic question, because that's very important, that this clinch, this is going to be one of the biggest things. The clinch is going to be much more aggressive from Conor, because he's obviously experienced with jiu-jitsu, and you know, brother, how tiring jiu-jitsu is when you get underhooks.
Yeah.
Unlike a boxer is not doing this. A boxer is not constantly fighting in the clinch, but I'm saying it now. I think Floyd Mayweather does not have a chance in hell of winning this fight.
Okay. That's a strong statement, man. That's a very strong statement.
Yeah, man. And I'll say it now with the Barbarian Philosopher that there is not a chance a boxing mindset can defeat a martial artist mindset. I just think it's impossible.
Okay.
I think that a boxer moving over to mixed martial artist into the mixed martial art world is way too dangerous. Unlike an MMA fighter moving into boxing, of course the danger is still there, but it's just such an interesting thing, Jay.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I gotta wrap this up soon, but I have a question. One more question I want to leave you with, and then give you opportunity in case you have any other question or anything you want to wrap up on. After, and this is something very important. You mentioned earlier that this being a fight about legacy, and for all the shit talking that people are giving McGregor for going over into boxing. After him saying he's going to have this fight and it being announced that yes, this fight is going to happen, you're seeing a lot of other MMA fighters now saying, oh, I'm going to go box. Jose Aldo has talked about going in boxing. Michael Venom Page is now looked into and I believe gotten a license to box. I think something that we are going to see as a side effect of this fight is we're going to see more MMA fighters broadening their scope and competing in other forms of sports combat. And I think what we may see is we may see some of the technical applications of striking come up to another level because McGregor has kind of paved the way and made it okay. He has set a precedent for testing yourself in other sports. For all the shit that people want to give McGregor, for everything that he does that people talk shit about, people then follow him and try to do it. When he became 2-belt champ, now you see other fighters talking about, I want to have a 2-belt championship. When he went out and said, okay, I'm going to go fight Mayweather, now you see other fighters saying, okay, I want to go out and box. So I think we are going to see a leveling up of the boxing and potentially other forms of striking in MMA from this. Do you think there's any validity to that?
Oh yes, that's a fantastic observation, and it's a very smart move from the UFC, and I do see the Zuffa. I don't know if you see the same. I see Zuffa boxing being somewhat a big part of this whole accumulation of fighters registering for their boxing licenses, and also absolutely, I think that is a fantastic opinion that the boxing world will have much better strikers, a much better approach in how fighters train is maybe one of the largest of all, because in a boxing, I think sparring in boxing is a wee bit it's a wee bit too old school. Unlike in mixed martial art world, sparring is very open. It's nearly like in mixed martial arts, what I found, it's nearly like going to see your psychiatrist, because you can literally ask anybody anything. You can ask anybody anything. Unlike a boxing club, everybody's the hard man. Everybody can knock somebody out. Unlike in a mixed martial artist, you will get choked out. You will get head kicked. There is multiple ways you can be ended in mixed martial artists. So I'm a very strange breed. I'm a boxer who actually believes that the way to train as a boxer is to train as a martial artist, and I seriously believe that, and that is in my heart. And I think Conor, you're absolutely right. Conor is going to pave the way that the best way to train to be a boxer is to be a martial artist first. And yes, Conor has paved the way. Conor is the Wright brothers who has designed the first plane, you know?
Right.
But it is a fantastic step for all of combat sports, for this huge movement, because now mixed martial artists can be exposed and let the world actually see how beautiful martial artists is. It's not just Hollywood, and it's not these stupid films you see. Like, martial artists are the most dedicated people in multiple fields, unlike a boxer is just dedicated in one field. And I believe the boxing community are very ignorant of the methods of training that is out there, because we are going to see on the 26th of August 2017 the world is going to change, and Conor McGregor, an Irishman who came up 4 years ago, is going to he's going to make a seismic explosion in across the entire world. But this has been one of the best discussions I've ever had with anybody about combat sports. So I'd like to thank you, Jay. I'd like to thank you a lot for this interview and this podcast.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thank you as well. This has been a lot of fun. This has been very interesting. I've enjoyed this back and forth, and I think we've put a lot of different aspects out there to think on, and we'll have to touch bases again after the fight and kind of review what we thought would happen versus what actually happened.
Yeah. And could you say a prediction? Can you make a prediction?
I can say that if McGregor wins, he's going to win it, I believe, within the first 4 to 5 rounds, and it's going to be devastating. It's going to be something that he's going to, if he wins, he's going to win by frustrating Mayweather and pulling him out of his game and causing him to rush in and do something foolish. And as you said it, Jose Aldo him. Otherwise, if Mayweather wins, Mayweather is going to win by doing the opposite, by pulling McGregor into the boxing pattern and drawing things out to the very end as a decision. I don't see Mayweather knocking out McGregor. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, that's very, very nice observation to this fight. It's a very intelligent comment, because I am a biased person, because I am obviously Irish, and I live on dreams, Jay. I live upon dreams, and it would be an absolute dream for Conor to change the whole world. But of course, any realistic person is going to say Conor does not have a chance. But this is why combat sports is the best sports in the entire world, because you and I know that when two men are willing to fight, that anything can happen. So if Conor McGregor is in the correct mindset and Floyd Mayweather is not in the correct mindset, we will see Conor do it. Come on, Conor.
Well, look, let me just say this before I wrap it up, because I think with what you said about believing in dreams, I think a lot of people credit McGregor's popularity due to the fact that he's brash and braggadocious. He talks a lot of shit. He dresses flamboyantly. He can sell a fight. All of those things are true. But on top of those things, I would say one of the reasons that McGregor has become who he has and why he is so popular and why he's skyrocketed in the way that he has is he has become a symbol for somebody following their dreams. He has become a personification of dedication and self-belief beyond what the average person would be considering reasonable or plausible. So with that said, I think that is also a part of the appeal to this fight, is that, you know, can you have a guy who believes in himself more than perhaps people would say he should, overcome odds that the world has seen or declared to be impossible to overcome. And I think that is an aspect of this fight that won't be mentioned and won't be told very much, at least not from the boxing community. But I think it's very interesting to see how that plays out.